Am I the a-hole for refusing to acknowledge my dad's affair child after he abandoned me? Throwaway account because my father's side of the family has nothing better to do than stalk my social media to find ammunition for their next intervention. I, 22F, am currently at a crossroads. My phone has been a nonstop vibration of guilt trips, insults, and inspirational quotes about forgiveness for the last 72 hours. It has reached a point where I'm starting to wonder if I'm the one losing my mind, or if the people around me are genuinely as delusional as they seem. I have a half-sister, 6F. She is the product of my father's affair. I want absolutely nothing to do with her, my stepmother, or my father. This isn't a grudge. This is a boundary forged in the fire of the most traumatic for years of my life. To understand why I treat a 6-year-old like a stranger, you have to understand 2017. I was 16. That's the year my mom's remission ended and the world fell apart. The cancer came back with a vengeance, settling into her bones and lungs. My father's reaction wasn't to step up, it was to step out. At 16, I became the manager of a household. My older brother, 27M, was away at a prestigious university 3 hours away. He was on a scholarship he couldn't afford to lose, so while he came home every single weekend to scrub floors and do laundry, the Monday through Friday reality was mine alone. I remember this schedule. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to prep my mom's meds. I'd make her a specific type of protein shake that didn't irritate her throat, help her to the bathroom, and then rush to school. I'd spend my lunch breaks calling insurance adjusters because my father didn't have the temperament for it. The most agonizing part was the silence from my father. He started having late nights at the office 3 or 4 times a week. Then came the weekend conferences. I remember sitting in the living room at 2 a.m., holding a bowl for my mom to vomit into, while my father's car wasn't in the driveway. I'd text him, "Mom is having a bad reaction to the new chemo. Where are you?" He would reply 4 hours later, "In a meeting. Give her the anti-nausea meds I left on the counter. Be strong, kiddo." The meetings were at a boutique hotel downtown. While I was learning how to flush a PICC line and track oxygen saturation levels, my father was whining and dining his mistress. He wasn't just having a fling, he was building a secondary life because the one he had at home was too depressing. The truth didn't come out in a dramatic movie moment. It leaked out in small, poisonous drops. I found a receipt in his coat pocket for a jewelry store, a diamond tennis bracelet. My mother's birthday wasn't for 6 months, and she was too thin to wear jewelry anyway. Then I saw a sonogram photo tucked into his car's sun visor when I was looking for a gas card. The date on the sonogram was 3 months before my mother passed. He was celebrating a new life while his wife was literally gasping for hers. My brother found out a week later when he saw our dad at a park, 3 towns over, holding hands with a pregnant woman who looked significantly younger than our mom. My brother didn't tell me at first, he wanted to protect me, but I already knew. You can smell the lies on a person when you've been forced to grow up as fast as I did. My mother died on a Tuesday morning. My father wasn't there. He was checking on a property. He missed her final breath by 2 hours. When he finally walked into the hospital room, he tried to cry. He tried to hug me. I remember pushing him away with so much force he hit the wall. I told him, "Go back to your other family. You don't belong here." The look on his face wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. He was annoyed that I had ruined his grieving husband moment. 6 months after the funeral, the mistress moved in. My mother's garden was ripped up to make room for a swing set. Her office became a nursery. My father expected me to be a big sister. He actually had the nerve to ask me to babysit when the baby was born. "It'll help you heal," he said. "New life brings joy." I moved out that day. I moved into my brother's cramped apartment, slept on a couch, and worked 2 jobs while finishing my senior year of high school. I cut them off. For 6 years, I have maintained a policy of total non-engagement. I don't go to their house. I don't answer calls from my stepmother. The only reason I haven't blocked my father entirely is that my grandparents, his parents, are elderly and frail. They were the only ones who actually helped us during the cancer years. They bought groceries, they paid for my car insurance so I could drive mom to appointments, and they sat with her so I could sleep. Out of respect for them, I attend major holidays at their home. But I do not play the happy family game. My half-sister, 6F, has been coached by her parents to see me as this cool, mysterious big sister. They push her toward me constantly. They tell her, "Go show your sister your drawing," or "Go give your sister a hug." I don't hug her. I don't look at the drawings. If she speaks to me, I look through her. If she persists, I say, "I am busy. Go find your parents." I am not mean in the sense that I don't yell or call her names. I am simply a void. I treat her with the same level of interest I would show a stranger's child sitting 3 tables away at a restaurant. This past weekend was the final straw. It was my grandparents' 60th wedding anniversary. It was a formal dinner at a country club. My brother was there with his wife and their 2 kids, 4M and 2F. I am a very present aunt. I love my brother's kids because they are part of the family that survived the fire. I was sitting at a side table, helping my 4-year-old nephew color a spaceship and showing my 2-year-old niece how to use a fork. We were laughing, taking pictures, and having a genuine moment of connection. My stepmother saw this and decided it was the perfect time for a breakthrough. She nudged the 6-year-old toward us. The girl was dressed in a miniature version of the dress I was wearing. My father clearly told them what I was buying so they could twin us. The girl walked up with a doll and a hopeful expression. "Can I play too?" "I have a spaceship for my doll." I didn't look up. I continued talking to my nephew. "And then the spaceship goes to Mars, right, buddy?" The 6-year-old tapped my arm. "Sister? Look, we have the same dress. Can I sit here?" I turned my head slowly. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just looked at her. "I'm playing with my nephew and niece. There isn't room at this table. Go back to your mother." The girl's lips started to tremble. "But Daddy said you were my sister. He said you'd love me if I just kept trying." "Your father says a lot of things that aren't true," I said calmly. "I am not your sister. I am a stranger to you. Please stop touching my arm and go back to your table." She burst into tears and ran back to her parents. The entire room went silent. The clink of silverware stopped. My father and stepmother stormed over. My stepmother looked like she was about to explode. "How can you be so incredibly heartless? She is a child. She is 6 years old, and she adores you. You just looked her in the eye and rejected her for no reason." "I have plenty of reasons," I said, standing up. "And I've listed them to you every year for the last 6 years. My boundaries haven't changed. Yours have just gotten more desperate." My father grabbed my shoulder. "You're acting like a monster. Look at how you treat your brother's kids, and then look at your own flesh and blood. It's disgusting. You're a grown woman holding a grudge against a first grader." I shook his hand off. "My flesh and blood is the woman you left to rot while you were busy making this child. My brother's kids are my family because their father didn't abandon us. This girl, she is the living proof of your cowardice. You can call me a monster all you want, but I'm the one who stayed when things got ugly. You're the one who ran. Don't you ever try to use family as a weapon against me again." I walked out. My brother followed me, leaving his half-eaten dinner on the table. He told me later that my father tried to start a shame circle with the rest of the relatives, but my brother shut it down by reminding everyone exactly where Dad was during Mom's final week. Since that night, I have been bombarded. My father's side of the family is obsessed with the idea of the innocent child. The texts, I've received over 50 texts from aunts and cousins. They say I'm traumatizing the girl. They say she's been crying for 3 days asking why I hate her. The social media. My stepmother posted a long, vague-booked status about toxic family members and protecting her daughter's light from those who only know darkness. The bribe. My father sent me an email yesterday. No apology. No acknowledgement of the affair. Instead, he offered to pay off my remaining $15,000 in student loans and help with a down payment on a condo if I would just agree to go to family therapy with him and the girl and try to be a sister. It's the bribe that hurts the most. He thinks my integrity and my mother's memory can be bought for the price of a mid-sized sedan. My grandmother called me, sobbing, saying she just wants us all to be together before she dies. She says I'm being too hard and that life is too short for this much hate. But I don't feel hate. I feel nothing. That's what they don't understand. I don't want to hurt the girl. I just don't want her in my life. I don't want to see her face and be reminded of the nights I spent praying for a father who is already gone. I don't want to be the big sister to the child who got the happy, present version of the father I never had. The family is calling me a bitch, a bully, and unstable. They say I'm punishing a child. But am I? Is it a punishment to simply not want a relationship? I don't owe her my love just because we share 25% of the same DNA. I didn't ask for her to be born, and I didn't ask for her parents to lie to her about who I am. My brother says I should go completely no contact and ignore the noise. But when 20 people are screaming that you're a monster, you start to look for the horns in the mirror. So, I'm asking you, Reddit. Am I the asshole? Am I being cruel to a child? Or am I just protecting the only piece I have left? Update. It's been about 6 months since I posted, and things have settled into something that resembles normal. Not the kind of normal where everything is fixed or forgiven, but the kind where the constant background noise finally quiets enough that you can think again. I want to be clear up front. There was no big reconciliation, no tearful apology, no dramatic turning point. What happened instead was slower, messier, and much more in line with how real life actually works. The first thing I did after that anniversary dinner was stop responding. Not in a dramatic announcement way, just a practical one. I muted entire branches of my family on my phone. I didn't block them immediately because, honestly, I wasn't ready for the emotional fallout of that yet. I just needed the messages to stop lighting up my screen every time I tried to work or sleep. For the first 2 weeks, they didn't stop. People really do double down when they realize guilt isn't working. The tone shifted from outrage to concern. Suddenly, I was getting messages asking if I was okay, if I was struggling, if I needed help. One aunt suggested I might be depressed and projecting it onto a child. A cousin sent me an article about forgiveness after infidelity, as if this were about a bad breakup and not about years of abandonment and parentification. I didn't respond to any of it. What surprised me most was how quickly the narrative started changing once I stopped engaging. When you're not there to defend yourself, people tend to fill in the blanks in ways that make them more comfortable. I went from cruel and heartless to deeply damaged to someone who clearly needs therapy. I'm sure that last one was meant as an insult, but they weren't wrong. I did start therapy. Not because my father's family told me to, and not to learn how to forgive. I started because I realized that while I didn't feel hate, I also didn't feel much of anything else when it came to that side of my life, and that kind of emotional flatness was starting to bleed into other areas. My therapist didn't push me toward reconciliation. In fact, the first thing she helped me do was name what actually happened to me. I had never really called it what it was before. I'd always said I helped my mom, that I stepped up. Hearing the words, "you were parentified," out loud hit harder than I expected. So did hearing that emotional neglect doesn't stop being neglect just because the parent is physically present sometimes. We talked a lot about boundaries versus punishment. That was the question that kept looping in my head. Am I punishing a child by refusing a relationship? What helped was reframing it. A punishment is an action taken to cause discomfort or teach a lesson. Avoidance isn't that. Disengagement isn't that. I'm not interacting with my half-sister in order to hurt her or make a point to my father. I'm not even thinking about her most days. I'm choosing not to form a relationship because I don't have the emotional capacity or desire to do so safely or authentically. That distinction matters. About a month after I posted, my father tried one more time. Not with money this time. He showed up at my apartment unannounced. I didn't let him in. We spoke through the door for maybe 5 minutes. He said he wanted to clear the air. I told him there was nothing to clear. He said my grandparents were suffering because of the division. I told him that was a consequence of his choices, not mine. He said his daughter didn't understand why I didn't like her. I told him it was his responsibility to stop lying to her about who I was. That was the closest we came to another confrontation, and even then it wasn't explosive. It was tired. He sounded older than I remembered. Not remorseful, just worn down by the fact that this situation wasn't bending the way he wanted it to. After that, the contact slowed significantly. I still see my grandparents. That part hasn't changed, but it has been adjusted. I visit them separately now. No shared holidays, no combined dinners. At first, they resisted. They wanted things to feel normal. Eventually, they accepted that this was the only way I would stay in their lives without resenting them. My grandmother did ask me once, very quietly, if I would ever reconsider. I told her the truth. I don't know what I'll feel in 10 years, but right now, Forcing myself into a role I don't want would only create more damage. She didn't argue after that. She just nodded and changed the subject. My half-sister hasn't tried to approach me since that night. From what I've heard through indirect channels, my father and his wife finally stopped pushing her toward me after a pediatrician suggested they were setting her up for repeated rejection. That should have happened years ago, but better late than never. I do feel some sadness about that. Not guilt, exactly, but sadness that an adult choice continues to ripple outward in ways that affect kids who didn't ask for any of it. That sadness still doesn't translate into obligation. Feeling bad about a situation doesn't mean you're required to insert yourself into it. The social media posts stopped once it became clear I wasn't reacting. There's nothing people lose interest in faster than a villain who refuses to perform. I'm sure I'm still the bad guy in some versions of the story, but I'm no longer the center of it. My relationship with my brother has actually gotten stronger through all of this. He checks in without hovering. He doesn't try to fix things. He just lets me talk when I need to. Watching him with his kids still brings up complicated feelings sometimes, but they're mine to process, not something I take out on anyone else. The biggest change has been internal. I used to measure my decisions by how defensible they were to other people. Could I explain this well enough? Could I justify it in a way that sounded reasonable? Now, I'm more interested in whether something costs me peace. Having a relationship with my father's new family would cost me peace. It would require emotional labor, emotional suppression, and a constant rewriting of my own history to make other people more comfortable. I'm not willing to do that anymore. I don't wish harm on my half-sister. I hope she grows up loved and supported. I hope my father shows up for her in ways he didn't for me. Wanting those things doesn't require proximity. So where things stand now is simple. I'm low contact with my father, no contact with his wife, and functionally no contact with their child. I'm okay with that. I'm not numb in general anymore, just selectively disengaged from the parts of my life that consistently hurt me. I don't feel like a monster. I don't feel like a hero either. I feel like an adult who made a decision that wasn't pretty, but was necessary. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that not every situation has a morally clean resolution. Sometimes the healthiest option still looks ugly from the outside. And sometimes protecting your peace means accepting that some people will always misunderstand you. I can live with that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update for more such stories.